Hello, my name is Rebecca Cutshall. The topic of my presentation is the importance of disaster preparedness for the general public and those living with access and functional needs. The purpose of this presentation is to educate and inform you on how to prepare yourselves for a disaster. After attending my presentation, you'll all be armed with the knowledge of how to be better prepared for a disaster. Let's begin. Hurricane season has officially begun. Are you prepared in case a disaster strikes your community? As an emergency management specialist for the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, my job is to assist disaster survivors before, during, and after disasters. Over the course of many disaster deployments, I've seen firsthand the consequences of being ill-prepared. Having a disaster plan in place reduces risk and reduces anxiety. However, those with disabilities may need to keep in mind some additional factors. Persons with disabilities need to be informed of the governing laws that agencies providing disaster assistance must follow. The Rehabilitation Act requires that federal, state, and local governments provide those with disabilities equitable access to disaster assistance programs and services. FEMA follows this law by providing accessibility accommodations at recovery facilities and reimbursement for disaster-related damages to assistive devices and medically required equipment. Disaster recovery centers are also now required to be equipped with ramps and language interpreters. The Rehabilitation Act led to the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA. Its purpose is to provide a clear and comprehensive national mandate for the elimination of discrimination against individuals with disabilities. That is from the Americans with Disabilities Act website, ada.gov. This law expands on those protections to make discrimination against those with disabilities illegal. FEMA's website, fema.gov, states, ADA required that the state and local government to deliver emergency alerts using a variety of forms of communication in order to better reach people with disabilities. Knowledge of these laws before disaster strikes provides a foundation for the rest of your preparations. Another key element of disaster preparedness is situational and weather awareness. Disasters can happen anywhere, but certain geographic regions are more prone to disasters than others, so it's important to be aware of what type of severe weather your community may be susceptible to. I contacted my state's Department of Natural Resources and found out that my home is actually located in a declared flood zone. This prompted me to take mitigative action by purchasing flood insurance. Tornadoes can happen with very little warning, so practice your shelter-in-place plan so you can get into position quickly. The National Weather Service instructs to shelter in the innermost room of your home, away from windows or mirrors. Stay weather aware during seasons of increased weather activity. Always have a reliable method of receiving weather alerts and warnings, such as a mobile phone or a NOAA weather radio. Check weekly forecast outlooks and prepare yourself accordingly. Now that you know what kind of disaster to expect, let's discuss your plan of action. Here are some tips for individuals with access and functional needs to keep in mind when preparing for disasters. A study from the University of Kansas titled The Nobody Left Behind Study reveals that 61% of persons with disabilities have not made plans to quickly evacuate their homes. Ready.gov suggests assessing your transportation options in case you need to evacuate. The website says, check with your local transit providers as well as with your emergency management agency to identify appropriate accessible options. That is from the Department of Homeland Security, Ready.gov website. Have a predetermined location to evacuate to if necessary, and make note of medical facilities and methods of transportation in the vicinity. The Federal Emergency Management Agency suggests assembling an emergency kit. This kit can include extra medication, emergency contacts, extra medical equipment or documents, and spare batteries for your electronic assistive device. If you or anyone in your household uses an assistive device such as a wheelchair, walker, cane, hearing aid, have a plan in place for replacing the equipment should it become damaged or lost. Now, with all of that said, today you've learned the importance of disaster preparedness for those with disabilities. Individuals must be aware of their rights provided by the Americans with Disabilities Act and the Rehabilitation Act to ensure that they are receiving all disaster assistance entitled to them. Maintaining situational awareness reduces the chances of being caught in a disaster unprepared. You can prepare yourself for a disaster by making an emergency kit and proactively arranging transportation in case of evacuation. This information will help you and your loved ones be thoroughly prepared for a disaster, preventing unnecessary loss and stress. Now, just remember, disasters can be deadly. Don't be caught off guard this disaster season.